Okay, so if we take a look at one of the big events is the ambience, I can find that by searching for A and B main, which is my naming convention. All the ambient sounds start with A and B, and the main one is just A and B main, so I can find that in the environment folder. And you'll see some other events appear as well because they're children. So I try and include the name of the main event in the child in the reference event. If it's not being if it's made for a specific reference, I'll do that just to try and keep it easy to find. But there are other ones that are referenced that are named individually because they might refer to other events or they might not be so specific. But these ones are all quite specific to the main event. If I click on the main event, I can go control hard bracket to change the view. Don't know why it's not doing it. Control hard bracket to change the view. There's a lot going on here. And you can see a good selection of different colored instruments here. Of course, blue means single instrument. These are just some test ones. Green means referenced, so there's a child event there. And I've got the sea first. Then I've got wind, storm, and day and night. That one's, well, these are going to be used to keyframe on off certain sounds depending on the day and night cycle. And you're going to see some red ones as well. They refer to snapshots, which are special states that will kick in. So for example, going to space will induce a low pass filter snapshot. So you can see the name of it there. And snapshots are just essentially mixer configurations. LPF duck, low pass filter. Basically, it's a low pass filter snapshot, which means that certain channels are exempt. So the LPF duck channel is exempt, but other channels will induce a duck. So the mix is actually really good the way Fmod do this. It's really great. I think you've got your overall mixer there, and that's its normal state of affairs. You can see that the convolution for, let's say, the forest is down. But if you click on the forest snapshot, you're essentially auditioning it then, and you're seeing, okay, the change, only the changes are shown in the snapshot. So it's a really quite cool way of not overwhelming you with things because the snapshot view only shows you what you've changed against the main mixer view, which you can get back to by just closing the little tab here. Not obvious at all. But yeah, so that's just snapshots in a nutshell, and they're hierarchical from the bottom up. So they'll just override. So all the important ones will be at the top, and all of the standard ones will be at the bottom. But yeah, a red event is a snapshot. So if I just expand this, red ones means that it's actually triggering a snapshot, and it will trigger a snapshot in the way that it triggers audio, in that you can have an envelope on that, which is quite cool, and you can also set parameter conditions on it so that it'll only trigger when this is satisfied, and that's just like an audio event. So yeah, Fmod treats it like an audio event, except it doesn't contain any audio because it's a snapshot. It just triggers a snapshot instead. So back to my explanation of the tracks. Day, night, space, planet. Again, they're keyframing against each other when the space parameter increases. There it is. And I've got the biomes then. I've got the woodlands, the beach. I've got some lava that don't think is used. Got some icy cold Arctic biomes here. This one's not in underneath the sustain point, so it's actually not firing. So the blue sustain point is holding the play cursor, and everything underneath is playing asynchronously, which means it's not pausing. It's actually allowing each individual instrument or child instrument to play asynchronously. So if I actually press play, I can just demonstrate this, probably better off. So press play, and you can see the wind track, which is this one here, is playing from this position, asynchronous to the cursor. And yeah, the sustain point is just an alternate way to hold on events rather than using loop regions, which you could use a loop region. It's just sometimes a sustain point is more elegant because you don't necessarily want the playhead to be moving sometimes. So I digress. Then we've got swamp and we've got desert. So these are the main biomes, and down the bottom we've got all the creatures, and you can see the creatures here. If you zoom into time of day, it's quite crazy. You can see all the huge number of audio files that are there. But yeah, back to timeline. So the general logic is that when when you enter a biome, the biome parameter will it will allow the event to play. This case, it's the woods clearings. Gosh, I don't know why that's still playing. Whoops. So yeah, this is the woods clearings ambience, and the way this is done is there's actually one stereo file for the general woods clearings, and there's another one for the alien. So each biome has two stereo files that are offset, and that's done at the child event level using event orientation, and it will rotate them in a kind of ambisonic way. FMOD doesn't quite have the same level of ambisonic support that Wise does, so this is kind of a fudge, but I'm quite happy with it because it's quite a certain approach to recreating the effect of ambisonics. So you get essentially, it's like having four mono. You got 2 and 2, making up a kind of ambisonic compass shape point of ambience, and then you've got the snapshot as well. So all of these will engage when the parameter condition for each is met, which is basically you're in the woods clearings, and it's the same for all the other ones. And yeah, just to keep things kind of logical, I've tried to put things on track. So the desert low, you'll get the desert low ambience. There's no quad animal thing going on here, and you'll get the snapshot. And it's the same for the other ones, except I think the all of these three desert biome strings will trigger the main desert. There's only one desert snapshot, and it's receiving an or condition for any of the desert biomes will trigger that one. So yeah, here's the valley snapshot. This induces a bit of reverb with this height above ground parameter, and it will come in, come out as such, and it's only happening when that condition is met, and it's happening logarithmically, I was going to say. So yeah, you'll find most of the sounds in the timeline, and you might not see anything going on with the event orientation at first, but there is quite a lot going on under the hood there, like I say, with the child events, and this is giving us a sense of directionality to the ambience, I think, which is quite important. So it'd be a shame to not have that on there. Speed. So yeah, when you go fast, that might change the high frequency content of the ambience, and there's things like this that, you know, it was actually years ago that I put this in, that it's quite easy to forget or miss. And it's not until you literally go through everything like this. So now I'm going through the parameter tabs, because even though there's mostly the audio on the main timeline tab, you might have audio and or keyframes in the parameter tabs, and you can see very easily. Usually you know where to find them because the name convention kind of matches up. And you know, the water, for example, you might expect to see some water stuff going on here as I go through the water parameters. Now you do have keyframes like that, but the audio should be conditioned off when it's muted anyway from the instrument level, so the voice count is kept low. That's my general approach to things. And just to show you here, there's actually there's like a compass point of C audio, which they'll be muted unless you're rotating the camera near water, and then you'll get a sense of directionality to the water. So each of these has a condition that it must have its water direction coming through, as well as the general water parameter, which is legacy now really, because I improved it with size help fixing it up. And yeah, each of these will come in only when that parameter is passed through, so that we're not playing sounds unnecessarily. And that's why you've got something like that might not make sense unless you're in the game and you're exploring near a body of water, and then you'll see the parameters coming through when you've got the FMOD profiler up and running. So yeah, these parameter tabs, they will just do specific things to only the audio tracks that you want to change with that parameter. So it might not be any, or it might just be one or two. It depends. Some of them, they might not do anything visibly here. I mean, you don't know until you go through all the different disclosure triangles and make sure that nothing's actually changing. But I still put them on because it could be that they have a condition added in the main timeline tab, and I just put them on there for like visibility or like a reminder that, hey, there might be, you know, a height above ground parameter going on your instrument. So I've included it here just as a bit of a visual reminder. Yeah, space. So these will be qualified. Oh no, maybe the child events are qualified. They should be. Most of the child events, well, you'll find the biome-specific ones underneath the Atmos folder, and that also applies to the space ones as well. I'm just checking to make sure that these have conditions. They don't have conditions. I might just put conditions on there to make sure that they are tightly controlled, but I mean, I haven't really done that much stuff in space just yet, but yeah, so that's going to need more work anyway. But these are not going to play outside of the space value. So if you can see the cursor at the top here, this instrument here is only going to play when it is between 0.3 and 0.55. So that your placement of an event on a parameter sheet, if it only covers this bit of the parameter sheet, it's basically the same as adding a condition and saying, you know, space and only engaging the condition between 0.3 and 0.55 down here. So that's essentially the same thing. It's just, it's easier to see the keyframes up here. You can keyframe down here as well. You can right click anything and keyframe it and add automation. Or you can add modulation, which is independent of parameters, but just general time-based modulation. But it gets a bit fiddly, and yeah, sometimes it's easier to do that sort of thing on a parameter sheet. So yeah, I've got all the biome strings that are coming through up here just for visibility reasons. They're all controlling the individual events over there, but again, like I say, just for visibility, to stay organized, it makes sense to have them up here. I think there might be a couple of desert ones that are not on there, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that they're not coming through to the main desert audio tracks on the timeline. So it does need, you know, it sort of needs housekeeping every now and then, I suppose, just to keep it relevant and to keep all the strings kind of there as a visible reminder. Yeah, there's the riverbed there. And these are the directional water parameters that allow directionality to happen when you rotate the camera near water. So that's the ambience event in a nutshell. If I come down, you know, we can see, if I just control and expand some of the tracks, there might be some routing happening. I try not to do too much routing. For example, things are probably going into either planet, well, they will be, and then the planet's broken up into all of the sub folders, and the ones in caps are the ones that are kind of acting as more bus or group or auxiliary tracks. So you've got day and night within the planet, of course, and then space above it. But yeah, planet, all the planet sub tracks. So for example, if I scroll up, yeah, most things are going into day and night, and then day or night will go into planet, and then planet will go to main. But yeah, just make sure that that's obviously something that you want to be checking. This is an interesting one. I think this was added to stop like a burst of audio on level load. These are funny little things that you have to do to stop that sometimes. There is actually something there. It's a little snapshot. So every time the level loads, there's a snapshot which just ducks down and controls that initial experience of spawning into the world. And there's a send track here. I'm not sure what's happening. I think I was using send and return there at some stage. Could be that something is going there. I'd have to go back and have a dig in to investigate what the current status of that is. The spatializer is on the master track for ambience because I'm enjoying its event orientation to control its surround direction. So this is a nice trick, basically, in terms of allowing the surround panning to come through at the child level and maintaining that through to the parent. But yeah, it does have the spatializer, but attenuation is off, and that allows for some directionality to that. So yeah, it gets really in the weeds very quickly, but essentially it all just works, and hopefully works for a long time yet. So there we go. That's the ambience in a nutshell.